Welcome back to Dear Monday. I'm TuRhonda Freeman. If you've been with me since episode 2, you know where we left Erin. She named the waiting. She understood, maybe for the first time, what she'd been looking for in the discovery process. That moment when everything would click and the doubt would finally lift wasn't something that the process could give her. She'd been waiting for permission. And permission from the outside doesn't hold the weight of a commitment this size. She left with a question. What am I waiting for someone to tell me? And what would it mean if I told it to myself? Something has shifted since then. I can feel it in the way she's moving now. The tabs are fewer. The research has a different quality, more targeted, less protective. She's not gathering anymore. She's getting ready. And that's when a new kind of fear arrives. Not the kind of fear of not knowing. That one she understands now. This one is different. It arrives when the decision is real enough to see the shape of what follows it. When you can actually feel the weight of the thing you're about to pick up. Erin is close to a yes. And today, before she gets there, I want to ask her and you one question. What does your yes actually commit you to? So, we're going to talk about the fear that arrives when you get close. I want to stay with this fear for a moment before we move past it, because I think it deserves more credit than it usually gets. There are two distinct kinds of fear in major commitment. And they're easy to confuse because they can look similar from the outside. The first kind of fear is not knowing. It's the fear that drives the research, the validation, the spreadsheets, 17 browser tabs. It's the fear that asks, do I have enough information to decide? This is the fear Erin has been living with. It's the fear episode 2 was largely about. And the way through it is more clarity, more honesty, more willingness to look directly at what you're really waiting for. The second kind arrives later. It's the fear that comes when you've done the work, when you have the clarity, when you're close enough to see the thing clearly and you realize the thing is real. It has weight and it has consequences. Your name is going to be on it. This fear doesn't ask for more information. It doesn't have a research question. It just sits there, quiet and specific. It sits in the room with you. And here's what I want to say about it. This fear is not a warning. It's recognition. The decision has become real, and real things carry real weight. Feeling that weight is not a sign to stop. It's a sign that you're paying attention. I've sat with a lot of people in this moment, and I've noticed something. The ones who try to make this fear go away, who need it to disappear before they can move, they tend to stay stuck longer. Because this particular fear doesn't go away by deciding, it goes away by doing. And even then, it transforms more than it dissolves. The ones who move well are the ones who learn to recognize this fear for what it is: evidence that the commitment is real, that they're not being careless, that they've arrived somewhere that deserves to be taken seriously. So, if you're in that place right now, if the fear has changed the texture recently, gotten quieter and more specific, that's not regression. I call that progress. Now, let's look at what yes actually means. Most people, when they think about saying yes to a franchise or a major ownership commitment, are thinking about yes to the opportunity, yes to the brand, yes to the business model, yes to the financial projections and the territory and the support structure. And all of that is real. That yes matters. But it's not the only yes on the table. Your yes to the opportunity is also a yes to a set of obligations: financial, operational, relational, personal, that most people don't examine fully and directly until they're already inside them. And by then, the shape of those obligations can feel like a surprise, even when they were always in the paperwork. The FDD tells you what you're buying. This conversation is about what you're becoming. Let me walk you through the layers. The financial yes. You know the investment numbers. You've modeled the returns. You understand the royalty structure, the marketing fund, the contributions, and the build out cost. What deserves equal attention, and I think gets less of it, is what the financial yes looks like under pressure. The personal guarantee that puts your assets on the line if the business struggles. The working capital reserve that needs to be real, not projected, because year one will not run on schedule. The line of credit with your name on it. The months, sometimes many months, before the business covers what you've put into it. None of this is hidden. It's in the documents. But there's a difference between reading it and sitting with it, between understanding it intellectually and asking yourself honestly, if this takes longer than projected to work, what does that mean for my life, for my family, for my financial position? A yes that's looked at that question directly is sturdier than one that hasn't. Secondly, the operational yes. You've seen the time commitments in the disclosure document. You've asked current owners how many hours they put in. Here's what you want to add to that. Ask them what a hard week looks like. Not a catastrophic one, a normal hard week. A week when two people call out and a vendor delivers the wrong order and a customer complaint needs your personal attention. You've also got your daughter's school play. Ownership doesn't pause for the rest of your life. Problems don't arrive on schedule or respect your boundaries. You are not just buying a business, you are entering a particular kind of life. The operational yes is a yes to that life, including its unpredictable edges. Most people who struggle in year one aren't struggling because the model doesn't work. They're struggling because they said yes to the opportunity without fully saying yes to the life. Thirdly, the relational yes. This one is the most understated, and it's the one that surprises people the most. Ownership has, I'm going to call it a relational radius. It extends further than most people anticipate. A partner who will feel the financial pressure of the first 18 months. Children who will notice a parent who's more tired, more distracted, more absorbed. Close friends who will hear less from you. family who will be affected by decisions you make without them signing anything. These people didn't choose this, but they'll be inside it with you. And the conversations you have with them before you commit, the honest ones, not the reassuring ones, are some of the most important conversations in this entire process. Not because they get a vote, because their understanding of what's coming will shape how much support you have when you need it most. The relational yes isn't about getting permission from the people you love. It's about not surprising them with the weight of something they didn't know they were signing up for. Number 4, the identity yes. This one is hardest to see from the outside of the decision. And it's the one I want to name carefully. You are about to become an owner. And that is a different relationship with responsibility than you've had before. It's a different relationship with failure because when something goes wrong, it's yours. Also, a different relationship with success because when something goes right, that's also yours. And that carries its own particular weight, right? A different way of spending your attention, your worry, your problem solving energy. The version of you that exists 18 months into ownership is a different version that's standing at the edge of this decision right now. Not worse, not necessarily harder, but changed. The commitment changes you. And you don't get to know exactly how before you make it. That's not a reason not to go, but it belongs in the yes. You're not just buying a business, you're committing to a version of yourself that doesn't fully exist yet. So, the questions she hasn't asked yet. There's a set of questions that almost everyone asks in the discovery process, and a set that almost no one asks. The first set, it's about the business. The second set is about the person running it. Erin has asked the first set thoroughly. Let me give her the second. These aren't the questions to ask the franchisor, they're the questions to ask yourself and to be able to answer honestly before you sign anything. What does a hard week look like in this business? And can you hold that? Not the pitch deck version, not the best case operational scenario. The week where things go sideways in 3 different directions all at once. She needs to be able to picture that week and say, I can hold that. Not easily, maybe, but I can hold it. Who in my life needs to understand what I'm committing to before I commit to it? Not who needs to approve it, who needs to know? Because their life will be affected and they deserve the honest version of what's coming, not the optimistic one. What's the plan for the financial pressure of year 1? Not the projection. The plan for when the projection doesn't arrive on schedule, because it often doesn't. And the people who navigate that well are the ones who plan for it rather than hoping against it. What does getting out look like? This is the question people like least, and the one I think matters most. Transfer fees, the resale conditions, exit clauses, the reality that this commitment is significantly easier to enter than to leave. She should know that before she enters it. Not to plan for failure, to plan like someone who has looked at the full shape of what she's signing. Why this? Why now? Why me? not the elevator speech, not the answer she'd give to the franchise development rep, the honest version, the one she'd give herself at 11 p.m. on Tuesday in year two, when it's harder than she expected, and she needs to remember why she's there. If she can answer that question clearly and specifically, not generally, not aspirationally, but specifically, I think she's closer to ready than she thinks. If she can't answer it yet, that's the work. So, what a yes that holds looks like. I want to be direct about something because I think it gets obscured in a lot of conversations about ownership. A yes that holds is not a fearless yes. There is no such thing in a commitment this size. Anyone who tells you there is has either never made one or isn't being honest about what it felt like. A yes that holds is not a certain yes. Certainty, the kind that removes doubt entirely, is not available at this stage. The business hasn't happened yet. Year one hasn't been lived. You cannot know with certainty that it will work. What a yes that holds actually looks like is this. It's a yes that has looked at the obligation directly, not just the opportunity, and decided the exchange is worth it. Not perfect, not certain, worth it. It's a yes that has asked the hard questions and sat with the honest answers, that knows what the financial pressure looks like and has a plan, that has had the real conversation with the people whose lives will shift, that has looked at the identity commitment and said, I want to become that person. It's slower to arrive than a yes driven by momentum or enthusiasm or the pressure of a well run discovery process. It takes more from you in the building stage. And it is, in my experience, having watched a lot of people on both sides of this decision, the one that sustains. The people I've watched navigate ownership well didn't go without fear. They went in with their eyes wide open, and there's a difference. And that difference shows up most clearly not at signing, but in year two, when the hard weeks arrive and the thing they committed to acts more than they expected. The ones who went in with their eyes open have something to stand on. Erin, she's building that foundation right now. And so are you, if you're in this moment with her. So let's bring this to a close. I want to bring it back to where we started. Erin came into this episode closer to a yes than she's been. The fear has changed shape. It's gotten quieter, more specific. And I said that was progress. I want to say it again because I mean it. The fact that the fear has gotten specific means she's been doing real work. She's not afraid of a vague future anymore. She's looking at an actual decision with actual obligations and feeling the actual weight of it. That's what clarity feels like. Not the absence of fear, the ability to see what you're committing to clearly enough that the fear becomes specific. Here's the distinction I want you to carry out of today. A yes that knows what it's committing to is a different yes than one that doesn't. Both of them might produce the same signature on the same document, but only one of them has looked at all four layers: the financial, operational, relational, and the identity yes, and made peace with what it found. That's the yes that holds. That's the one worth taking time to build. So here's what I want to leave you with this week. One question: for when it's quiet enough to answer honestly, if I said yes today, what am I actually saying yes to? And have I looked at all of it, not as a barrier, but as a map? Because the more completely you can answer that question before you sign, the more solid the foundation beneath. So here's what I want to leave you with this week. One question for when it's quiet enough to answer honestly. If I said yes today, what am I actually saying yes to? And have I looked at all of it? Not as a barrier, but as a map. Because the more completely you can answer that question before you sign, the more solid the foundation beneath you when the hard weeks arrive. Coming up in episode 4, Erin has been doing her work. She's closer. She's asking better questions. She's building a yes that will hold. But there's another woman in this conversation who's been quiet until now. She's not standing at the edge of ownership. She's standing at the edge of something just as significant and just as uncomfortable. She's still employed, still inside a role she's spent years building. She has a plan. She's been building the off-ramp quietly, carefully, for longer than most people know. And there's a question she keeps coming back to that she hasn't quite been able to say out loud. Next episode, we meet Allison. And before I go, if this episode named something you've been circling, if the questions in today's conversation are the ones you've needed to sit with before you can move, this is exactly the work I do. Before the commitment is made, before the contract is signed, when the thinking still belongs entirely to you. To learn more about the advisory work behind this show, visit www.dearmonday.co. Clarity before commitment. Take care. I'll see you next week.